This is Gemara Yevamos Daf Sadi Vav. All learning should bring in accordance to the children. So Chaim Devar Tam Siva Sarach Shalom Levi Zayva Bigdali Yoshem Chaya. Plumiyut is Bas Sima Malkos. Bas Lush Hashem Shal Bias and Fred Shmon Tilon Dozim Chalas Cham Basiva. Saram Blue Mas Min Chaim Shishub and Mago Shavik Shechana Chavlei Basardina. Besoich Shar Chayli Yisrael. We pick it up from the Mishnah on Sadi Vav Amid Aleph. And now we're going to bit of a disclaimer that the Mishnah that we're about to learn is a Mishnah that we've learned prior. And when we learned the prior, I think we said when we get to Sadi Vav, we'll explain it. And now we're here on Sadi Vav. And the disclaimer is that there's not much to explain. It's just a pasha din in the Mishnah. But let's try our best to explain what's going on. Says the Mishnah, Amrullah Mesa Ishtacha, continuing the theme of everything that we're talking about. They tell someone, Mesa Ishtacha, your wife was nifter. So what happens? Lo and behold, Vinasa Chaisa, he marries her sister, Me'avia, her paternal sister. Mesa, then he receives report that she died as well. Nasa Chaisa Me'ima, he marries her maternal sister. Mesa, he receives report that she dies. Nasa Chaisa Me'avia. Mesa, Vinasa Chaisa Me'ima. V'nimsa Kulan Kayamas, and all 5 women walk in, they're all alive. What's the halacha? Mutter. Barishaina ubeshlishes ubechamishes, that he's allowed to marry. He's allowed to stay married to the first, the third, and the 5th wife. Upaitrai sarai sayam, and their sarais are potter. And va'aser b'shniya b'revius, and he's aser to 2nd and the 4th. So let's explain very simply. We have 5 women, A, B, C, D, and E. A and B are paternally related. B and C are maternally related. C and D are paternally related. D and E are, once again, maternally related. So if you're doing the math, if this is a paternal relation, maternal, what happens is that A, C, and E have no relation to each other because they were halves of halves, so they're not related at all. So if this man goes and he by accident marries these 5 women, so to be married to A and B is impossible because they're paternally related. You can't marry paternal sisters, and therefore that marriage is impossible. So he's married to A and B falls away. Now when he marries C, he can marry to C because C is not related to A. And then when he marries D, he cannot be married to D because D is C's maternal sister. And then he could yes be married to E. So 1, 3, and 5 he is yes married to. 2 and 4 he can't be married to as they are paternal sisters of A and C, 1 and 3, and you can't be married to 2 paternal sisters. Continues the Mishnah, and being with one of them does not pater up their Sarah. And over here is a little bit interesting that it says the word here tzara explains the Mefarshim is I don't want to say a misquote, is a borrowed word. It doesn't really mean a tzara. What it means is 2 and 4. And if the right, and again, just one more point. The reason the word Sarah is not a real word because he was never really married to B and D. As we said, that marriage was impossible. Continues the Mishnah. If he's with the 2nd woman after the first one dies, and as the Gemara is going to explain, it means the first one really dies, not just that he heard that she's dead, then Mutter B'Shniya, he's allowed to stay married to her. Uberavi is then the 4th, and now again we'll play out the same case. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 is actually dead, so the marriage to 2 is good. If the marriage to 2 is good, he's not allowed to be married to 3. Therefore, he's yes allowed to be married to 4, and he's not allowed to be married to 5. He's also to the 3rd and the 5th. That is part A of the Mishnah. That is, we'll call it the complicated part of the Mishnah. And now we continue with part 2 of the Mishnah, which is really going to be the discussion of today's daf. We have a boy that's 9 years old. What's his relationship via Yibam? Apostles, says the Mishnah, due to the apostles, the brothers. Meaning if this 9-year-old boy is together with the Yevama, what happens is now the other brothers who are Gedalim or adults are not allowed to do Yibam. And the adult brothers are disqualify him. If one of the adult brothers does Yibam, then he, the 9-year-old, is apostle. Ella, who baisal tchila, he basels originally in the beginning. V'achem baisal tchila b'soif, beginning and end. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. What's the case? And again, we have to explain the Gemara what this means. But first, before we get to the second half of the Mishnah dealing with this 9-year-old boy, the 9-year-old brother says of the Gemara, the Mishnah continued, the Mishnah said, but if he marries the second wife, sister, after the first one dies, ask the Gemara, the whole Mishnah was predicated on the fact that we thought the first one died. Says Rav Sheshes, you know what's going on over here? Here's where we know for certain that the first one actually died. Now we continue to part B of the Mishnah. Part B of the Mishnah says that this case of the 9-year-old. What is the case of the 9-year-old? Ben Teisha Shanim. What's his relationship via Yibum? Says the Gemara. Ben Teisha Shanim Yamecha Tchilo Pasol B'Saif Lai Pasol. This 9-year-old passes in the beginning and not at the end. Ask the Gemara 1 second. And again, we don't yet know what beginning and end means. Ask the Gemara about Rav Zid Rav Aisha. Ha'isa Maimer B'Yivinta V'Achach so we see, even though it's at the end, one of the other brothers did Maimer, and then this 9-year-old does Bia. It does Basel. Amri explained as follows. Bia, if this 9-year-old actually sleeps together with the Yevama, then Pasel Afilu B'Saif. If the 9-year-old at any point does a full-fledged Yibum, actually consummates as Tashvish with the Yevama, that always passes. But Maimer, if the 9-year-old does Maimer Kedushin the Rabbanon, Tchila Pasel B'Saif Lei Pasel, only Pasel in the beginning, not at the end. Ask the Gemara, really? Ubi Afilu B'Saif Pasel? Fakatani, but we learned Al Shu Pasel Tchila Vein Tchila B'Saif. The Mishnah said explicitly he passes in the beginning and they passel always. And then the Mishnah explained Keitzad. So we see clearly he's talking about Bia. Explains the Gemara in classical Gemara sense. A 9-year-old passes in the beginning. The brothers always could passel. But by Kedushin the Rabbanon, that's when they always passel. They only passels in the beginning. And now the Mishnah continues. Keitzad. So says the Gemara, that's how you read it. So Tchila B'Saif, beginning and end, Bia always passels of the 9-year-old. Maimer only in the beginning. Ask the Gemara 5 lines into the wide lines, 1 second. You just told me that this Katan, this 9-year-old could do Maimer and passel the brothers. Ask the Gemara, Misli the Maimer Cloud, can you do Maimer at all? Aidei Achin. Vatanya, Ben Tisha Shanim Yom Echad, who Baisel B'Davar Echad, V'Achin Baisel Aidei Arba Davar. And what does that mean? Who Baisel Al Yedei Achin Bibia only, V'Achin Baisel Al Yadu Bia Maimer B'Gen Chalitza. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. We see even the Brisa only Tashmish works for the 9-year-old and not Maimer at all. Explains the Gemara. Bia, the Pasal Ben Tchil Ben B'Saif, Psikalei. That's klar. Maimer, that's why we listed it. Maimer, the B'Tchila Pasal B'Saif, Le Pasal Le Psikalei. The Brisa only listed Bia because that works across the board. Maimer only works Tchila, so it did not list it at all. Continues the Gemara, Itmernami, another Raya, Amar Rav Yudah, Amar Shmuel. Yesh Loi Gat, Chemer Tachliva, Baravimi, Yesh Loi Maimer. Tanim Yachi, Yesh Loi Gavi, Yesh Loi Maimer, Diver Ameir. Savra Maimer, Yesh Loi Gat. Vatanya Sabias Ben Tisha Gemaimer Begadol. Rameir Amos Chalitas Ben Tisha Get Begadol. Vemisa list the Gigita. What does it list? Get Amar Avuna. Breit of Yeshua slave is Zutar. Get is a lower form. L'Rav Gamliel Damein get acher get. Honey me the begadol acher gadol. Because an acher kat. Aval gadol acher kat and mani. According to Rav Gamliel, but the Rabbanan Damri. Yesh get acher get. Honey me the begadol acher gadol. Because an acher kat. Because an gadol. Loi mani. So that's the different forms of what the katan is going to be able to affect this 9-year-old boy. That when he gets involved and he does tashmish, he does be with the Yevama, it disqualifies anyone else from getting involved with this Yevama. Continues the Gemara as we turn over to Sad Yevavam and Beis. similar scenarios of this 9-year-old boy, and now we're going to discuss when we have multiple 9-year-old boys. Says the Mishnah, we have a 9-year-old boy that's together with his Yevama, and then another brother sleeps with her who's also 9-year-olds. What is the din? The second brother makes the first brother aser, because the second brother that had tashmish with her works bidin, and therefore the first brother is pasul. Rav Shimon Aimer says Rav Shimon loy pasul, he argues. But next case in the Mishnah, ben tishan v'yamecha shabal yevimtei v'acha baal sarasai pasul aydei atzma pasul al yedei atzmai. He makes himself, if he is together with the Yevama, and then he himself goes and together with the co-wife, a second Yevama, and makes himself pasul. And again, Rav Shimon Aimer loy pasul. So explains the Gemara Tanya, what exactly is the shita of Rav Shimon, in which both cases Rav Shimon is saying loy pasul. Says the Gemara, Rav Shimon Chachamim explains Rav Shimon, im bia rishayna bia shniya einay bia, v'im bia rishayna einay bia shniya nami einay. Says the Gemara, Rav Shimon has a simple logic. Rav Shimon says, whichever way you cut the pie, if the first act of Bia works of this 9-year-old, then it's finished. She's a married woman. Then Bia Shniya is nothing. And if you're going to tell me that the first 9-year-old that's with this woman, that the Bia is nothing because he's only 9, then the second Bia is also nothing. So that's why it says Rav Shimon loy paisel. And explains the Gemara, Mas Nisan deloikim ben Azai. The Tanakama of the Mishnah does not fit with Ben Azai. The Tani Ben Azai says you're able to do subsequent maimer. And now we have another Mishnah today. Says the Mishnah, a similar case, we have the 9-year-old that's together with the Yavam. And what happens in this case? And then the 9-year-old dies without any children. Says the brothers have to chalitza and ayibam. Nasa isha umes. But let's say, continues the Mishnah, if the katan went and married a woman, umes, and then he dies without any kids, you don't have to do anything at all. If the 9-year-old is with a Yavam, then he grows up and he marries a different woman, then he dies. If he wasn't together with the first woman when he got older, he didn't know where he was in Mishamish with her, then a Rishayna, the first wife, you have to at least do chalitza just to show that you're severing the ties, but you cannot do yibum. And the second marriage is a regular marriage. You slept with her, you was together with her the whole time. But if Shimon Aimer again, miyavim laser sheyer to do yibum, do whatever you want. For chalitza shniya, the second one needs chalitza. Finally, the Mishnah concludes, that's the same din if someone is 9 or someone is 20, they didn't bring Shtei Cyrus, that's the exact same din. So begins the Gemara trying to figure out that what did the first part of the Mishnah tell us? The first part of the Mishnah taught us that whenever we have a Yavam, that we have 2 Zikas from that Yavam, you have to chalitza and not Yibam. This was the first case of the Mishnah, that a 9-year-old was together with the Yavama, so the 9-year-old creates a Zika, but not a full-fledged one, because the original Zika to the original husband was never fulfilled. So now when the 9-year-old dies, we have a woman with 2 Zikas. Said the Mishnah, do chalitza and not Yibam. Amar Rava, 5 lines into the white lines. That which you just taught me, this din, that whenever we have 2 Zikas, you do chalitza and not Yibam, says Rava. Don't say that this is a din when there is a tzara from the second husband. Don't say that. Because in our Mishnah, leka tzara, and still so points out Rava, don't think that the only time you need to do chalitza and ayibum is when there's another tzara that you're afraid of. No, in all scenarios, even in the case like our Mishnah, which there was not a second tzara, still it was the same din. Continues the Gemara, Nasa Isha Umeis, continuing quoting the dinim in the Mishnah, that if a katan marries a woman, nothing to do with yibum, he just marries a woman, and then he dies. What does his wife have to do? No yibum, no chalitza, said the Mishnah. Continues explaining the Gemara, Tanila Tanara Abana and Shaita bekatan shenasu umesu nishayseim b'tiras ben chalitza min hayibum, the same thing. V'anteisha shanim u'misha higdil. Now we continue. The Mishnah taught us. So we have a 9-year-old boy. He's together with the Yevam, and then when he becomes a gadol, he reaches adulthood. What happens? He marries someone else. Said the Mishnah, if he was not together with his original wife after he became a gadol, then the second marriage is a full-fledged marriage, and the first marriage is nothing. Says the Gemara of Yasabias ben Taz, K'maymer begadol. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Why isn't the bia of a 9-year-old something? It should at least have the status of maimer, and if it has the status of maimer, v'tidach esara mi yibum, and therefore the co-wife should not be able to do yibum. We're learning in the Mishnah that the 9-year-old's actions is nothing. That if he went and he married another woman and he consummated that marriage, that's the marriage we deal with upon his death, and the first marriage not. Says the Gemara, why? It should be a din like maimer, and therefore the Sarah should not be able to get involved. Rav argues. Rav says, no, I don't hold that din. The bia of a 9-year-old does not have a din of maimer. Says the Gemara, but Shmuel amar asu va'asu. Says Shmuel, no, they did indeed treat the maimers actions like the maimer of an adult, that they do treat it like an adult. But Rav Yochanan says, 1 second, v'yasu. But if it's true what I'm telling you, so let them say that the bia of the 9-year-old is like a maimer of the adult. And if that is the case, this is basically the Gemara's whole kasha, then the tzara should not be able to do yibum. So why did our Mishnah not say such? Explains the Gemara, Tanoi, it's machlokes Tanoim. That Tana made a gezerah, whereas our Tana does not. And he taught us the gezerah by a gadol who hadn't been katan. V'aydamar gadol, why? We shouldn't be gadol. We're talking about that case. V'aytana on our Tana of our Mishnah. There's no gezerah. Misham sarah. V'ashvina be katan who hadn't been gadol. V'aytikamar be katan to be katan kaive azul. So explains the Gemara. It's machlokes, a fundamental machlokes, whether the gezerah applies or not. And we conclude today's shir with a story that Rav Elazar Amar Lishamei. Rav Elazar said he's attended by Midrash of Lamer Mishmei Rav Yochanan. Rav Elazar said his date in the base Medrash, not his attendant, excuse me. Amar Lishmaitza b'Bei Midrasha. V'lo Amar Mishmei Rav Yochanan. He didn't say it over the name of Rav Yochanan. Shama Rav Yochanan Ekbid. Rav Yochanan was upset. It's my din. All legabei Rav Ami Ravasi. Rav Ami and Ravasi went up and Amrulay. They said to Rav Yochanan, like Amaisa basic in Ezra Tavaria. Was this not the story in the shul in Tavaria? Ben Nagar Sheish Beroisha Glustra. Concerning the din of a bolt that had a knob at the end, Shanachlu Rav Lazar, Rav Yosef, Rav Lazar, Rav Yosef debated it. That what happened? They tore a Sefer Torah in their anger. Pauses the Gemara, and the Gemara says, you really think they tore a Sefer Torah? You know what it means? A Sefer Torah, b'shoigeg, and intentionally, due to the intense fight, was ripped. Not that they ripped it purposely. Now we go back to the story. Rav Yosef ben Kisma was there. Amar, and he said to me, Ani, I don't understand. I'm gonna be shocked if this shul doesn't become a shul of Avodah Zarah. And so it eventually be, that's what happened. That Rav Ami and Rav Asi went to Rav Yochanan and said, Rav Yochanan, calm down. You're getting all upset. He didn't say the din over in your name. But do not remember that story that they got so upset. A Sefer Torah ripped. And at the end of the day, the shul became a base of Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, fascinating. Hadarik mitfei. Rav Yochanan was even more angry. 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Hadar. Omar, he said, Chavrusa Anami. Did you telling me that he's my chaver? The way that you're telling me over the story, it sounds like you're pretending that Rav Elazar, who's my Talmud, is the same din as my chaver. He's on my level. So what happens? Another person tries to calm Rav Yochanan down. Oh, look, that one didn't work out so well. So Rav Akbar quoted the pasuk Moshe Avdu Cain and Tziva Moshe as Yeshua. So to Moshe commanded Yeshua. Also, when he did Yeshua, Hashem did not remove any item. For that which Hashem commanded as Moshe. Ask the Gemara. Did Yeshua always repeat it. This is what Moshe said. Ella, what's going on over here? Yeshua Yoshev Dairish Stam. He said over a din. V'akol yoidim. When you hear of Yeshua talk, everyone knew. Shetayra sel shal Moshe. So he said to Rav Yochanan, Av Rav Elazar Talmidcha, Rav Elazar your Talmid, Yoshev Dairish Stam. He's staying over dinim stam. V'akol yoidim, and everyone knows. Kishalcha, everyone knows that you're a dinim. And finally, Amr Lahem says Rav Yochanan, Mipnei ma yatem yodayim lafayis kiven idi chavreinu. Rav Yochanan said to Rav Ami and Rav Asi, why don't you know how to calm me down? Like our friend Rav Idi, and that's why Rav Yochanan was calmed down, because he realized that the Talmud Rav Elazar, whatever he said, was really in his name. I'll just one simple example. It's here Rav Asher Eli. Everything he says over is from his Shver, his Rebbe, Rav Nachman Partzovitz, whether he quotes it or not. But either way, let's finish up today's shir that says the Gemara of Rav Yochanan. Why was he so angry? Now that we calmed him down, but Tachlis, why was Rav Yochanan so angry? 3 lines to the bottom. What is the meaning of the pasuk? I live in your tent of the world. Can you live in 2 worlds? It should be your will. That after I die, he says David HaMelech, they should quote me in this world. You repeat something in the name of the Rebbe, spice of David. It's as if he's talking in the graves. My crow, we see this in the pasuk that says, we see that the lips are still moving while they sleep. And the Kachamim are compared to a heated pile of grapes. You put your finger on it. What happens to the grapes when you put your finger on it? The wine stops moving. The bubbles, it bubbles all the way to the top. So says the Gemara, you know Rabbi Yochanan was upset because he wanted that Leilam Haba, he wanted lost in lava, he wanted when he's in a grave that he would retain the schar of his Torah. We'll pick up from Echad Ben Tishanim in the next year, in which Mir Hashem will conclude the parak as well.